Hello everyone, and welcome back guys to episode 2 of Jamie183 and myself's F1 podcast that still remains nameless because lack of creativity. Actually, yeah, we'll start this off by saying if you guys have got any ideas as to what to call this podcast, please let us know down in the description below. But obviously today we're here back talking about the Bahrain Grand Prix that obviously went live, what happened in real life over the weekend. You can tell there's a lot of discussion about YouTube content on this channel normally. Well, I'm not good at talking about real life. But yeah, obviously, if you guys missed out on the first podcast we did last week where we predicted our top 10 for the F1 2021 Drivers and Constructors Championship, or mainly the Constructors and then who would come out on top in each driver rivalry, yeah, I would definitely recommend going back and checking it out. Obviously, today, though, we're here back talking the Bahrain Grand Prix. We're pretty much going to exclusively talk about the race itself, and then maybe at the end of this video as well, obviously, we'll do a little bit looking towards Imola, and then we also wanted to talk a little bit about Formula 2 as well then. But, kicking it off then, what a Grand Prix it was, Jamie. What were your sort of initial thoughts and feelings when all was said and done in Sakir?
I absolutely loved it. Also, it's nice to be introduced to this video. So, hello everyone.
You're a regular. I don't need to introduce
that's
you.
That's true, to be fair. You should all know who I am by now. I really enjoyed it. Like, it was, in terms of an actual natural race, it's probably one of the best I can remember in a long time. Like, obviously, races that are crazy because of safety cars and because of weather and stuff like that, they're obviously quite regular. But an actual race with no intervention from a safety car, just two drivers going at it the whole race, is one of the best in quite a long time, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, now you've said that, I'm trying to think. I think, the last time we really had a race like that was Hungary
sometime with
2019?
Oh, yeah, probably Hungary. That was a good race as well.
Yeah, that was... Well, this was sort of what I said about halfway through. This Grand Prix really gave me Hungary 2019 vibes. Yeah. It was sort of like swapped the other way around. Obviously, it didn't quite work out the same way with the strategy and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, it was... To kick off a season... I mean, everyone sort of... Like, there was this huge debate I saw on Twitter going, well, last season's opener was better than this season's.
Yeah, it was, but that's just because it was a crazy race with loads of safety cars and unpredictable stuff. This race was naturally really good, which I think is very exciting for the future of the year.
Yes. This is sort of what I am and on about in sort of my own mind, Mo. Does that technically, in my eyes, therefore make this a better race? Last season's was a better spectacle. This one was a better race in my eyes.
Depends what sort of motorsport fan you are, I think. If you like the pure two drivers going at it for a championship, I think this was better. But in terms of, especially maybe a casual viewer, watching last year's race would have been, like, in terms of Austria last year, was probably more fun to watch.
Yeah.
But this, I think, as a motorsport fan, as a like hardcore motorsport fan, this was better, I think.
Yeah, no, I think we can agree on that then. Obviously, what we'll try and do over the course of the day is sort of just talk through the main talking points from the Grand Prix. And really, I mean, it started before it even began, didn't it? Sergio Perez, pre-race, on the formation lap, the car switched off on him.
Yeah, classic Red Bull second car luck, striking Perez very early. But to be fair to him, he got it going without any help and, recovered, as we will probably mention, really well throughout the rest of the race. Sort of gave me the vibes of Sakir last year in the first stint, where he just was overtaking at least one car each lap quite easily. Obviously, the cars at the back, quite easy to pass, but still, he was in the top 10 before you even knew it, really, which was very impressive from him. I think a very good first race. You think you compare that to the likes of Albon or potentially Gasly coming from the back, they'd have probably been just about getting to top 6 by the very end, but Perez was there 20 laps from the end, already in top 6.
And this was, I was going to say, obviously, talking about that failure at the start, it seemed a bit weird, didn't it? In the fact that there would seem to be no panic from Red Bull. I mean, they confirmed beforehand, obviously, Honda had already changed the control electronics on Gaslys' car earlier on in the weekend. I think it was Saturday.
Yeah, on Perez as well.
Well, they did it on Perez's car as well as more of a precautionary measure. But then it sort of seemed weird, the fact there was no sort of panic, almost like they expected the car to shut down pre-race.
Yeah, it was really weird. Maybe they're too used to it after the last 6 years. But it was very strange. No one, even on the radio and everything, well, I guess he didn't have radio because the electronics had gone off, but they weren't that panicked, and then it just suddenly came back on and he drove to the end of the pit lane and got on with it. But it was a very strange incident, really.
Yes, yeah, very weird. I mean, just mentioning there, you talking about Honda power units shutting down. I would like to remind you, Honda were the only supplier last year that had no engine penalties.
Yeah, they were very good last year. I just meant Red Bull generally for the last last 7 years haven't been
that's
that reliable.
Yeah, no, Red Bull tend to like to push their engines to the absolute limit, normally because the car wasn't quite there to battle with the Ferrari and the Mercedes just in front of them. So obviously we had Perez with his issues pre-race, 2 formation laps. Did that maybe come back to haunt Red Bull at the end? Had there been one more racing lap?
I didn't actually think of that. That's
You
true.
never thought of that? Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't think many people have.
And that's Perez's fault that they caused the extra formation lap, didn't they?
Well, we'll talk about that later on in this video. I think it's safe to say that will definitely be a talking point we come back to. Then we get to the start, the real start. 5 lights go out. Fairly undramatic turn 1. Tsunoda went backwards. We noticed that. And then, well, he went. I think you said he was down to like P17, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was very close to the back right at the start. Yeah, I don't know why. Obviously, he started 13th or 14th, so
yeah, 12th I think it was in the end.
Very bad start for Tsunoda, but he recovered very well. But one man who didn't recover was Nikita Mazepin, who ended up in a barrier very quickly. I don't want to laugh, but it was a very, very poor weekend all round.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts beyond that, really?
Well, I mean, what more can you really say? I don't want to be the one to start defending Mazepin in this series, but Schumacher then also did the same not long after.
The car looks like an absolute handful.
The car looks like an absolute handful, but you think lap 1, turn 2... I mean, he said, I know, obviously, I read through Haas's article after the race. It was very depressing to read through, I won't lie. But obviously, Haas sort of said, that Mazepin said he tried to avoid Schumacher, but he crashed like 4 seconds later.
Yeah, to me, it looked like he just got on the outside curve at turn 3. He lit up the rear wheels and binned it. Like, that's a league racing error. Like, how is he doing that in a top tier of motorsport?
It's something you do, in your first lap of time trial in a Formula 1 game, not in your very first Formula 1 Grand Prix. And, I mean, again, I'm not going to I hate this whole idea of people on Twitter just completely wanting Mazepin to bin it every weekend.
Yeah, they want him to fail.
Because
it's really
on
bad.
the one hand, you think, if he makes mistakes, it doesn't really bother me that much. As long as, obviously, of course, as long as he doesn't get injured or anything like that. That's always the big thing as well. But, I mean, if he makes a few blunders here and there and he learns from it, you think, fair enough. Every driver deserves that chance to sort of make a few mistakes early on in their career. Everyone's done it. As long as it doesn't become a regular thing and it very quickly becomes clear he's only got his Formula 1 seat because of his dad's money. Yeah. Now, there's always that debate about it anyway, let's be fair. Had his dad not been a billionaire, I think the story might be a bit different.
Yeah,
but I think if he can prove himself that he can actually turn some laps and Mick Schumacher was comfortably ahead of him anyway at the end of qualifying, wasn't he? I think the gap was about 0.8 of a second.
Yeah, because Mazepin didn't get to his last lap, obviously. Well, he did, but he binned it at turn 1.
Yes.
So I think the gap was a bit bigger than it would have been because Schumacher got his last lap in.
Yeah.
Whereas Mazepin didn't. But either way, I think they're going to be fighting over the back row most of the season anyway. So
it's going to be the battle for the wooden spoon, isn't it?
Pretty sure Magnussen and Grosjean are lucky they got out when they did, to be fair.
Yes, yeah. And I think, again, obviously, everyone was talking about Mazepin's crash, but you got to remember Schumacher basically did the same thing. He was just lucky it was at a different part of the track. So obviously he didn't fly off. Obviously that first incident by Mazepin brought out the only safety car of the day, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously we saw a couple of VSCs later on as well there. But on the restart though, Charles Leclerc, he got past Bottas down at turn 1. And then obviously on the restart, he was almost 3 wide with Hamilton
he did
and
go for the lead,
Verstappen.
didn't he?
I don't think he quite got the lead, but he was right
he was
there.
3 wide, yeah. I was very impressed by Leclerc all weekend. Obviously we know how good he can be when he's got the car underneath him. We saw him absolutely rinse Vettel last season, so I was very impressed. Sainz isn't a bad driver. I think obviously it's his first race in a new car, so you can't really judge Sainz too much, but Leclerc pretty much got the maximum out of that, battling, keeping it, splitting the McLarens in the end actually, only just losing to Perez close to the end. So it was a very good race for Leclerc. I think that it's nice to see the Ferraris slightly more respectable. I'm not a massive Ferrari fan, but it was a shame seeing the battle for 14th last year, so it's nice to see them up there with McLaren, definitely, and hopefully that battle will be a good one to watch.
Well, it's a bit weird. I know everyone was saying this on Twitter. It was weird seeing Ferrari have to drive so far down the pit lane for their boxes.
Yeah.
You'd see the McLaren's pit, And you'd see the Ferrari fly past, you'd think, oh my god, he's undercut him. And then realise, oh no, he hasn't hit his
It's just not
yet.
stopped yet.
Which, I mean, it's the furthest they're down the grid lane since 1980.
Yeah.
And at that point, pit stops weren't really a thing. Obviously, back then in Formula 1. So, I mean, it is really, the furthest down the pit lane Ferrari have really ever been, when you think about it, as well. But you just saying sort of Charles Leclerc when he's got the car underneath him. I'd argue Charles Leclerc is even better when he hasn't got the car underneath him.
That's
when
true,
the car's
actually.
skating around all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a
extract the
banging
maximum, can't
Q3 time.
Yeah, and they topped Ferrari 1-2 in Q2 as well, which obviously
Yeah.
doesn't actually mean that much, and it was on softs, but
Yeah.
it was still good to see him back up there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Leclerc, he's certainly, if he's got the car underneath him, I do genuinely believe he's got what it takes to be at least close to Verstappen and Hamilton.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
I just don't think he's going to get that chance between now and Ferrari getting better and Hamilton retiring,
Yeah,
which I'm sure there'll be a whole podcast to dedicated in the future.
good idea.
but,
Write
yeah.
that one down.
We'll write that one down. We'll keep that one in the notes as well. Then obviously, so he had the restart. Obviously, Charles Leclerc trying everything at the start there. One man who was trying everything and unfortunately gone backwards though was Pierre Gasly. Now I'm sure this one hit close to Jamie's heart. As some of you may know, Jamie is a huge Gasly fan. What were your thoughts and feelings off that restart? And then of course the mistake.
Just a bit gutted, really. I think it was Gasly trying to get past Bottas into one, which left him like out of position.
Yes,
all the way up towards turn 4, which then the two McLarens both got past him into turn 4. And Ricciardo, obviously trying to avoid contact himself, broke a little bit early into turn 6. And then Gasly didn't have the reaction times to get out of the way. And hit Ricciardo's diffuser and lost his entire front wing and got floor damage. So it was a bit disappointing. Very disappointing considering how quick the car was. But I think the good thing is the car pace is definitely there. It's not like a once a season potential 5th place or something that he's thrown away. I think the car will be there or thereabouts a lot of the races, especially next week at Imola, because we saw how quick they were there towards the end of last year. So as a Gasly fan, I think it's not the end of the world. Obviously, it's a bit of a shame, but there's plenty more races to make up for it.
Yeah, again, I think that was a Gasly fan's interpretation of the incident. On the other hand, it's lap 1 after a safety car. Everyone's going to be a bit cautious, and it seemed to me watching it that Gasly got on the brakes at the right time, and then sort of just let them off and sort of lackadaisically just went into the back.
Yeah, it's almost like he was
Daniel
thinking
Ricciardo.
there was no car in front of him, so he's going to take the corner normally.
Yeah, it was all a bit weird. But again, I mean, I was a bit gutted for Gasly, mainly because he completely screwed my F1 fantasy team. That was why I was more annoyed with Gasly, I won't lie. But I mean, I'm sure he won't make that mistake again this year. And I'd be surprised if he does, to be honest. Gasly, again, I'm not a big fan of Gasly in the same way Jamie is, but he's certainly a driver that generally will only make that sort of mistake once a year. Unless he's in the Red Bull.
Consistent driver. Unless he's in the Red Bull.
He does tend to learn. I mean, again, he hasn't gone back to Red Bull, so he hasn't made that mistake again. But he's generally, he's a clever guy behind the wheel. I think we both know that. I mean, you'll admit it anyway. So obviously, we had Gasly was sort of there with the McLarens and the Ferraris then. Then we started to see sort of this titanic battle start to form between McLaren and Ferrari, sort of in the first window of the Grand Prix. And obviously, Lando Norris managed to get up to Charles Leclerc. They then had a brilliant battle for a few laps, obviously sort of jockeying for position. Arguably, I think up until about lap 50, that was probably the best battle we'd seen all day.
Yeah, I think so. I think Leclerc and Norris, they both feel like they've got a lot to prove, especially as they've not had the car really to fight towards the front. But I think it was battle for 4th at that point. So clearly they want to try and hold on to it. I think Leclerc knew that by the end of the race he maybe didn't have the pace to keep up with Norris, but it was a very good battle. I think when they went side by side into turn 4, I thought that was going to be a crash, but they're both skilled enough to just about avoid it, luckily. And very good racing. And I think the McLaren was just about quicker than the Ferrari this weekend. So Norris always had it coming to him, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is hopefully going to be a battle that we can really watch throughout the entirety of the season, isn't it? It seemed like, obviously, Gasly had a very good weekend up to like 12, whenever it was. Oh, no, it was about lap 5, wasn't it?
4, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, when he made that mistake. But I feel like, we're definitely sort of seeing Ferrari and McLaren. Obviously, it's only one weekend in. A lot can change, but they really did seem to have that clear-cut margin over the rest of the midfield. Maybe AlphaTauri can hang with them more consistently, but obviously that'll take a few more weeks to sort of develop and see how that plays out as well then. Obviously, then not long after that, we started to move into more the strategy element of the Grand Prix. Obviously, Hamilton came to the pits lap 14. What were you thinking when he did that off the mediums?
I don't know anything about strategies, so all I'm working off was like the pit stop summary thing at the start of the race. So them saying it's a 2-stop, you never actually know when they say that. I was fully expecting Red Bull to cover it because that's generally what they do, but obviously they were confident they could run their own race, but then they forgot that dirty air was a thing apparently. So maybe in hindsight giving up track position was a little bit stupid, but I think that if they had tried to cover it off one lap later, Mercedes then do something completely different with Bottas and you're in another problem. It's just, the issue of having only one driver against two. They're always going to come up to it until Perez gets a good qualifying in. Hopefully he does that quite soon. But
so it's only been one weekend.
Yeah, it's been one race. Yeah. Over the last 2 years we've seen it quite a lot. But
yes,
yeah, I don't know. I think it was too late anyway. It would have been about a 2/10 difference, the AWS thing was saying, had Verstappen pit the lap after. So it would have been very close anyway. Maybe they were better just trying their own thing. But in hindsight, maybe not. I don't know. It's obviously down to the strategists. They're a lot more qualified than I am to talk about that sort of thing. And obviously they know way more than I do. So, yeah, it was a weird one. I had it like my experience of the closest thing I can compare it to is when I'm league racing. If a driver behind me tries to go for an undercut, I cover it off the lap after, regardless. But that's maybe because I'm a bit cautious. Red Bull obviously have a lot more technical expertise than me in league racing. So they obviously tried something different. You could argue it worked, but then didn't. Yeah, we'll get onto that later.
Yeah, obviously we'll come back to that in a bit. But I think, like you said, Hamilton, I mean, he pulled, what was it? Obviously Hamilton pit end of 14, Max pit the end of 18. Hamilton then pulled 8 seconds over that. Oh, no, it was about 10 seconds, obviously,
when
you
you
include...
out the pits,
Obviously, by the gap he was behind beforehand. And I think, Hamilton, obviously, they pit him in, and then Red Bull very quickly realised, had Max pit anyway, Hamilton would have probably got the jump on him, so I think they just thought, right, we've got to play the long game here. We may as well pit Max when we wanted to, get him to the end in the quickest way possible that we can, and sort of try not to worry too much about Mercedes. And again, we'll talk about that later on in the video. And then not long after that, obviously, Fernando Alonso. We haven't mentioned him much so far.
No.
I'll be honest. I don't like Alonso as a human being. He's not my favourite person in the world. I can, on the other hand, completely appreciate the fact that he came back to Formula 1 with 2 years out and instantly in qualifying got pretty much everything out of that Alpine that, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting him to do.
Yeah, he smashed it. He was brilliant, I thought, all weekend. The race pace just really wasn't there, but
no,
neither was the quali pace, really, but he still managed to get in the top 10. I think he has shown that he's not lost anything since he left. No. He was still brilliant all weekend, I think, and unfortunately I think it was a brake issue. I think it was actually
this is what I was going to talk
sandwich
about.
Or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a sandwich wrapper got caught in the brake and caused damage. I want to know if it was a ham sandwich or not, personally.
Knowing the French, it was probably cheese, to be honest.
You reckon the French sabotaged their own car, do you?
Yeah,
I reckon that's what's happened.
Well, it wouldn't have been ham in Bahrain, man. Think about it. Come on.
That's also true.
But yeah, I think he did brilliantly all weekend. The race pace wasn't there. I don't think the tyre wear was quite there either. We saw him going backwards a little bit in the race. But I still think he probably would have scabbed a point or two had he finished.
This is sort of what they said, wasn't it? Because obviously we saw Alonso, he was sort of sticking with that McLaren and Ferrari battle. Now, I don't think he would have been able to keep up with them to the end. But obviously, again, that was probably not helped by the fact that he immediately started to have these brake issues quite early on. That obviously they just overheated him, and obviously the problem just got worse and worse. Hence why we saw him going backwards as well there. But obviously that did lead to, I think, one of a lot of people's most memorable, not most memorable, but pretty memorable moment in the first half of the Grand Prix, and that was young Snooky Tsunoda's dive bomb on him from a mile back.
I actually missed it during the race. I just was looking at my phone, so I didn't see it the first time or in the replay. So the first I saw it was on Twitter afterwards, but it was really good, like from so far back. I don't know, potentially Alonso had to brake early due to his issues, but either way, to have the confidence of sending one on the two-time world champion on your first race was pretty impressive. Obviously, we saw back in the day Kobayashi used to do that sort of thing. So maybe it's a trait of the Japanese, but I hope he does it more. It was a really good move.
Name a more iconic duo than Japanese Formula 1 drivers and bags of confidence.
Just sending it. Yeah, Kobayashi was always pretty mental back in the day, but
Yeah, I mean, they come in and they're just confident instantly, which I think
Yeah.
is incredible. And I think, again, I don't want to get too much on this Yuki Tsunoda hype train that a lot of people seem to have got onto. Because on the one hand, I'll be honest, some of the stuff that's obviously come out in articles about him, I think a lot of people are overhyping him because he's 5'2" at the end of the day, and people love him because they could put him in their backpack.
Yeah.
Which isn't a personality trait in my eyes.
Yeah, being short isn't all
Yeah.
that.
But I mean, bless him so far. In the car, he's done an absolute worldie this first weekend, and again, I'm sure we'll talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit later on. Now, obviously, I think this was about midway through the Grand Prix. Then sort of it started to get a bit quiet again. Obviously, we saw Hamilton undercut Max once more, or sort of
Just extend the gap, didn't it? The
Yeah,
gap
sorry,
came down to
extend the
2.5
gap.
seconds, I think.
Yeah,
then
obviously
it went
over
back to,
another
like,
couple of
9.
laps. And this is sort of where we had these rumours that maybe Mercedes were planning a 3-stop strategy, which seemed a bit crazy, I won't lie. Obviously, we saw one pit, and then we saw Red Bull pit a little bit closer second time round, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then, obviously, it was sort of just that whole thing of Max Verstappen isn't going to have that big of an advantage. Surely it's worth just keeping him out to the end of the Grand Prix. And obviously, again, we'll talk about that later on. Then we move to one of the more controversial moments of the weekend, and I'm sure this will be one that Jamie is absolutely looking forward to getting into. Sebastian Vettel. I'm sorry.
Oh,
That
dear.
crash with Ocon was just... I mean, it was the purest version of oh dear I think I've ever witnessed.
Yeah. It was not very impressive. I think we saw when he went to Ferrari back in 15, he was really, really good from the off, and he sort of put the whole Red Bull 2014 behind him. I think this race was appalling from Vettel. Like,
This whole weekend...
the qualifying was
appalling,
bad.
yeah.
The race was terrible. I think the strategy didn't help him. He was like left out way too long at the start on his old tyres and was getting like swallowed up by everyone. But to just crash into Ocon like that and then blame Ocon for turning into the corner. Obviously, heat of the moment stuff. He might not have meant it on rewatch.
Yeah, he did straight after the Grand Prix go and apologise to him. So I think
But
that was
still,
heat of
to
the
make
moment.
he's made that mistake so many times before. I think back, Silverstone 19 when he did that to Verstappen. It was very similar to that. Just braking right behind someone. Of course, you're not going to have as much downforce. So brake a bit earlier. Don't just T-bone the car in front. It was so poor from a 4-time world champion, just making himself look even more silly than he has done already.
And again, this is what we spoke about in pre-season. Both of us would love to see prime Sebastian Vettel back in that Aston Martin, really dragging it to great results and things like that. And you can talk about last year's Ferrari being woeful, but he's still making the same mistakes. Again, it's only been one weekend. We'll give him a little bit of slack, or I'm going to anyway. I don't know whether you are.
Yeah, I'll give it
or
him as
not.
well. Why not?
But you just think this has got to change, or it's... I mean, Stroll was quicker than him all weekend, pretty much, wasn't he? I mean, you look back at free practice, if I quickly just double-check it. Where was... FP1, Seb and Stroll were pretty much even. FP2, obviously I'm just basing this on fastest lap, Stroll was clear of Sebastian by about 4/10. FP3... Again, let's have a look. Stroll was again clear by about 3/10. Obviously, qualifying, Seb was unlucky with that. I mean, Mazepin, again, we've spoken about Mazepin. There's not really much more to say. Seb was one of the guys who got screwed by that. And then Ferrari decided they'd switch off Sainz's engine right in front of him. That time round, apparently, he didn't obey the yellow flag orders as much as he should have. So he was at the back of the grid for the start of the Grand Prix, and I think. Again, it was one of those things where this is just going to be one of those weekends for Seb, isn't it? And every weekend just seems to be one of those weekends for Seb at the moment.
Yeah. It was poor. It was very poor. Even people say, he got binned off by yellow flags in quali. He was 8/10 off Stroll on the first run, or at least by the end of Q1 he was 8/10 off. Like, was he really going to improve by that much to get into Q2? I don't know. Hopefully it'll just move on, get back on with it, and he's off to Imola in a couple of weeks.
Exactly,
and
yeah.
Hopefully fresh start, round one. Call it round one, ignore this one.
Is this like Sebastian Vettel's equivalent of playing from 0-0?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I think we just want to see Seb back, but I don't want to see it. I mean, I want to see it, but it's not going to be the end of it.
I don't have
for me
much
if
confidence.
He doesn't. No, I don't have much faith in it happening as well. That you just sort of think whether he needs a new sports psychologist or something.
I thought you were going to say he needs a new sport for a second then. That's
Well,
very
yeah,
harsh.
I mean, BTCC could get him in that, I suppose.
Potentially.
I'm sure. I mean, he might go to DTM for all we know. He might do something like that.
Formula E.
in the future.
You're welcome there. Been off.
Yeah.
What is it? Reject F1 drivers all end up in Formula E.
They certainly do, yeah. But I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, Sebastian Vettel finished 15th between Schumacher and George Russell.
Yeah. And he had 10 seconds added at the end.
Yes, that just isn't acceptable. Right, anyway, so obviously that was, again, sort of the only big piece of action we saw later on in the Grand Prix, until we get to the final 10 laps. I'll paint a picture. 10 laps to go of the Grand Prix. The gap's 7 seconds. Max Verstappen is taking, like, half a second to a second a lap out of Lewis Hamilton. We see, first of all, Hamilton's lock-up, and he runs wide at turn 10. Some people were saying he abused track limits there. Others,
shut up.
Others have brain cells and understand he's locked up, of course he's going to run wide.
And he lost about half a second in that as well.
It's just what happens. So, Max Verstappen, he's closing out this gap. The clock's ticking. We've got 4 laps to go. He gets a run down towards turn 1. He can't quite make the move work. He sets himself up beautifully for a run up the hill. He gets to the outside of Lewis Hamilton. And then we all know what happened. Jamie, what were your thoughts?
I don't want to get into too many arguments. I think the people complaining loads that it's like, oh, it was fine because Hamilton went off 29 times in the first half of the race. It's completely different going off track in a lap when you're not battling someone to completing an overtake off the track. I think it was completely fair that Verstappen had to give it back.
Yeah, we can definitely agree on that one as well. I think it's people don't seem to understand racing another this is another thing we need to desperately talk about, isn't it? Penalty consistency and track limits. Sorry, carry on. Yeah,
okay, I'll go ahead. I think that is a different issue to the passing off track. I think we can ignore that for now. But the track limit thing, the thing that frustrates me is that you go to some tracks, if I remember correctly, like Imola last year. On the outside of the chicane, you could do anything you wanted. And then on the outside of turn 4 or turn 5, I think it was, you had to stay within the white lines. Like, why is the track limits different for certain corners in qualifying against the race? The same as here, actually, in Bahrain. In qualifying, you had your lap invalidated for running out wide at turn 4.
And in free practice.
And in free practice. And then in the race, they just said, well, we're not policing this, do what you want. And of course, when you say that, the drivers are going to do what they do and get the fastest lap possible by running wide.
That's their job, yeah.
Yeah, that is their job. So Hamilton was completely within his rights to go off track 29 times until about, I think it was like 30, when they're like, right, we're going to start policing it now because we've gone off 29 times. So, yeah, that bit annoys me that they changed the rules mid-race, or seems to have changed the rules mid-race, and we're like, right, we're policing it again now.
Yeah,
but
and I think
it was just the poetic irony, really, that the big controversy happened at the same corner. Like, that's why everyone's kicking off, I think.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of where the problem lies. Is every Formula 1 track has a white line going around it.
Yeah.
Why can't we just stick to that if it's going to keep bringing up this many issues over and over and over?
Yeah.
I mean, you look back at COTA 2017. Again, Max Verstappen overtook off the track. Again, had to... Well, I mean, he didn't that time.
He got a penalty, yeah.
He got a penalty to effectively give up the place.
But then the rest of the race, the rest of the whole weekend, then, you could do what you wanted with that.
Exactly. It just seems like if we're going to have these different... Like, again, I think it was complete... I think what the FIA did was right in terms of making Max give the place back.
Yeah.
But if they were policed in turn 4 in pre-practice and qualifying, why wasn't it policed in the race? And why was... I mean, apparently they sent a memo round to the teams on Friday saying it wouldn't be policed as strictly in the race. How on earth are half the drivers not then knowing this?
Yeah, it was really... Like, Verstappen, GP came on the radio, didn't he? And was like, Lewis is using all of turn 4, you should do the same.
Exactly, and Max
like
Verstappen instantly did.
Yeah.
But what I noticed as well, rather interestingly, was Perez was never given that message.
Do you know that?
Perez was not given that message.
I guess it didn't matter as much.
They told Verstappen he could do that. I mean, Perez was still trying to carve his way through. I mean, when you look at it at the end of the race, 5.5 seconds, he probably wouldn't have gained that. Yeah, I mean, you say that.
You're talking
If
like
he
2
does-
tenths at most a lap.
Yeah, but over a 56-lap Grand Prix, that's
Yeah, but Red Bull only told
11.2
Max,
seconds.
lap 30 or something, 35.
That's still about the gap that it was.
I don't know. I think.
I mean, yeah, again, you can draw hypotheticals, but Sergio Perez was not given that message. That was confirmed. But, yeah, if we're going to keep getting all these issues with it, it's just got to be the white lines.
Yeah.
Surely you stick to the white lines if it's going to continue. I mean, if it ends up, again, we're talking highly unlikely situations here. Say, for example, Hamilton wins the World Championship by 3 points at the end of the year. And that's why people will look back at that. Because people will. If it comes down to the wire, it's psychologically already that'll be playing to both of them. Max Verstappen would have gone to bed last night and rewatched that clip in his head 1,000,000 times.
Yeah, but I think the good thing is about Max is that he won't get raged about it. He'll just be like, seeing what you can learn from it and do better next time. Because I do think there's definitely things you could have done better that race.
This was an idea I've got for another podcast as well in the future. I definitely want to delve into that a bit more as well. Sort of talking about how defining a year this can be for both Max Verstappen and Red Bull as a sort of joint venture as well. But yeah, I think we both can fairly agree on the fact that it was fair that Max had to give the back place back. It was fair that Hamilton was running wide. If you think otherwise, you probably don't quite understand the rules and were just sort of reading what had been put on Twitter rather than what had actually been sent around, or you're looking for a fight.
There were so many things. I think it's easy to point the blame at that one incident.
Yeah. And it's easy to hate on Hamilton because he won the Grand Prix.
Yeah, exactly. But there were so many things that race that were unpredictable. Or even in quite a normal race, really. Little things made a huge... people say, oh, Hamilton gained 2 tenths by running wide at turn 4 every lap. You could say that. You could also say, I don't know if it happened, but Verstappen got DRS off a back marker and Hamilton didn't. That's 4 tenths down the front straight.
Exactly.
Or you say, oh, there was no extra lap because of the formation lap.
That's
hypotheticals. There's so many little things that you want to point a finger at, but you just select the one that you're annoyed about and run with it. So I think just get over yourselves. Hamilton won it very fairly. As a Max fan, I was a little bit annoyed, but I think the great thing is, in previous years, you're like, oh, Verstappen didn't win a race. What a shame. Hamilton's going to win the title anyway. It doesn't really matter. I think this year, the reason it's more frustrating is because it is a title fight, or it seems to be.
There is genuinely this hope, isn't there? That's from everyone.
Yeah.
There is this hope that we're going to get a real battle this year.
I think that's why I'm not too annoyed, because I think the Red Bull overall was the faster car, and it makes me very excited for the rest of the season. And I know there's going to be races Max wins, there's going to be races Hamilton wins. So it's not that big of a deal, really. But obviously, it's not a great start for Verstappen to already seem to be losing one of the battles.
Yeah. Obviously, whilst we had all this going on, it was the only thing we saw in the last 10 laps.
Yeah, 100%.
But, exactly as it should be as well. There's a battle going on for the lead. I don't care who's battling behind, just straight up. We did sort of see Perez and Ricciardo having a bit of a ding-dong further down the order. Obviously, Perez did get past Charles Leclerc and Ricciardo in the later stages of the race. But
we didn't see either of those. And I still haven't actually seen either.
No.
I don't think they put it on Twitter yet.
No, they might. Obviously, hopefully we'll get some best onboards by the time this video goes live. But yeah, we never saw that either. Then we also saw Latifi and Gasly apparently just giving up towards the end.
Well, we didn't see it, but yeah.
Yeah,
we
still have no idea why.
Down. They were 4 and 5 laps down by the end, so I'd imagine they stopped. Otherwise, that's very bad pace.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Probably just, I think Gasly retired because of the floor damage. I haven't seen anything from Latifi at all. So
yeah. But obviously, the end of the Grand Prix, we got an opening race of the season that was decided by 7 tenths of a second after 52 laps without safety car intervention.
And that was decided with 3 laps to go, pretty much.
What more can you... let's be fair. I hope we'll get a better Grand Prix this year, or a more memorable Grand Prix, but...
I think we 100%
It's not a bad benchmark,
It's not a bad way to start, no.
No.
And if we get that 22 more times, I'm all for it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think my heart will cope when we get another 22
that's
like
true.
that. I'm all for it, but I think I'm going to struggle to cope. But this was, again... We're going to quickly touch on this then, Jamie. Sergio Perez having that failure before the start, did it cost Max Verstappen a chance at the win? Yes or no?
Well, it didn't cost him a chance because he still had the chance.
Yes.
I think there's so many hypotheticals you can point to. Obviously, that didn't help, but we saw, I think, after lap 53, when he went for the move and had to give it back, those next 3 laps, he was never close enough again, I think, because he used all of his battery basically in the overtake, which is completely fair.
Yeah.
But the idea is
And
you make an overtake that sticks, and
Yes.
if he's ahead, he's fine. But the problem is he has to get it back, and then he's got no battery left. So I don't think one more lap would have made a difference, in all honesty.
Fair enough.
But
Fair
there's so many little things you can point to that also interfered with the win.
Yes, exactly. This was another thing, actually, that I forgot to mention at the start. Max Verstappen having those diff troubles. Now, we sort of heard it mentioned early on, and then it sort of went away. I don't think now we still quite know exactly what happened. I don't think, to be honest, we might ever really know exactly what happened. I think
we've seen it a lot with Max. Any little thing that happens,
picks up on.
Yeah, like power delivery, differential. If it's anything going slightly away from what it should be, he's straight on the radio, and people say, "Oh, it's complaining, get on with it." But he is a top class, like world class driver. Of course,
exactly. Hamilton does the same.
Yeah, Hamilton does the same as well. This is just what they do. Obviously, they're giving feedback to the race engineers. Like,
exactly.
It's an issue with the car. He needs, well, if he can, need to sort it, but he can obviously cope.
And obviously, don't forget you can change diff settings in Grand Prix.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't. I mean, it probably wasn't perfect for him, but I don't think it made.
I think definitely first
difference.
it cost it a bit of time. He didn't pull away as much as I thought he would.
Yeah, I noticed even through the first corner of the Grand Prix, he does that big sort of twitch. That even looks like rear diff locking slightly, was what caused that. But again, I don't think. We're talking hypotheticals here.
Yeah.
Again. So, that is sort of, quite a long roundup of the Bahrain Grand Prix, but there was certainly a fair bit to get through. Biggest surprise, good and bad then, Jamie, for you?
I'll go with a little rogue one, I think, and I'll go for the pace of the Alphas. I was quite surprised by.
The Alfa Romeos, is that?
The Alfa Romeos, yeah, sorry. They finished 11th and 12th in the end.
Yes.
And Kimi
was
almost up at the points.
Yeah,
so
that was another thing I was
quite
going to mention.
surprised.
We had 52 laps without safety car intervention. We had 11 cars from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different teams finishing on the lead lap.
Yeah,
that is impressive.
Kimi didn't get lapped at all.
No.
And there was nothing to bunch the field up at all after lap 4.
Exactly, that's what I mean. We have 52 racing
yeah.
laps, and Kimi still only ended up 88 seconds behind.
Yeah, and he was only, 2 seconds off the points. That's pretty impressive considering where Alpha were last year, only picking up points when people crashed out. So, yeah, I was very happy about that. Obviously, his 20th anniversary, him and Alonso, of their Grand Prix debut, which is ridiculous because I'm 20, so it's pretty crazy. But yeah, it does make me it does make me happy seeing Raikkonen be able to fight again.
Yeah, so that's your good surprise for the weekend. What was your bad surprise of the weekend?
It's difficult. I don't want to pick Vettel, so I'll go with the pace of the Alpine, I think, because where they were last year, I expected a little bit better. I think Alonso took that car to place it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, it was a drag effort by Alonso, wasn't it?
I think realistically they're looking at probably 6th best behind Ferrari, AlphaTauri, and McLaren, which is probably not what they expected after where they were last year.
They're a team pumping so much money into this.
Yeah, they're a manufacturer. They should be doing way better.
Exactly. So, they should be in that battle with Ferrari and McLaren. End of story.
And they should be miles clear of AlphaTauri.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be my bad one. What about you? I'm guessing you're going for Sebastian Vettel.
No, actually, I'm not. I'm going with just how bad the Haas was as my bad. I mean, again, we got 2 rookies in the car, so take it with a pinch of salt. But that thing looked like it was running minus 64 ballast at the end of the day.
So unstable.
It looked impossible to drive from the brief onboards we saw of it as well. I mean, Seb was probably a close... I mean, yeah, again, Alpine and Seb was probably a close second. Because
the bad thing is, it's not much of a surprise anymore when Seb does bad.
Yeah, that's worrying, isn't it, I think. And then I think my good surprise was... I'm going to go Ferrari, to be honest. I thought, again, this is such a power-orientated circuit. The fact that Ferrari were right there with McLaren, who've got Mercedes power, they've made big strides over the winter. And again, like we both said, we're not Ferrari fans, but we can both completely appreciate you need Ferrari near the front.
Yeah.
And I am so looking forward to hopefully seeing McLaren and Ferrari really duking it out over the course of the season. Tsunoda as well, I was tempted to put in there. But again, sort of the AlphaTauri did look very, very quick this weekend. So I think, to be honest, he probably finished where he should. But
Probably
again, he's
a bit
a
lower
rookie.
than he should, really. But it's his first race, so you got to cut him some slack.
Yeah. Do you think he finished lower than he should? Do you think
I think
Ferrari? He finished behind both McLarens, both Mercedes, both Red Bulls, both Ferraris.
I think if
in
Gasly,
the fifth fastest car, we reckon.
I think it was fourth fastest this week. I think
Gasly's always really good at Bahrain, though.
Yeah, that's true. Gasly does have Bahrain tax. But I do think if Gasly had done a clean race with no damage, he probably would have been somewhere around Leclerc and Perez by the end.
Yeah, right. Briefly then, again, we'll probably make a full podcast on this later, closer to the date. Your top 3 predictions for Imola, off the bat.
Thinking of last season. It's bad there. There's no overtaking. I would go Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas. I think that's pretty typical, really.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I was going to go the same. I'm going to change it up. I'm going to go Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen.
Right. Really mixing it so widely there.
I'm going to mix it up.
I feel a bit harsh on Perez. I feel like he would have been near Bottas by the end if he hadn't started last.
Yes, yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah, actually, I'm going to change it again. I'm going to go Hamilton, Verstappen, Perez. That's. I'm not changing it anymore.
Right.
Right.
We'll probably change it in the video closer to the time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure by the time we've rolled around with our actual pre-Imola video, things will have changed. So, there we go then, guys. That is the F1 segment of today's video all done and dusted. Hopefully, obviously, if you guys have enjoyed, you do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. Obviously, I'll make sure I link both our socials down in the description below. Now we're going to do it. We both wanted to do this as well. Obviously, we're going to jump into a quick F2 discussion. Obviously, a bit more sort of just skimming through it. But obviously, as well, if you're watching this video, stick around. Maybe you're going to enjoy this bit.
Get into F2, it's great.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Get into Formula 2. This is the first season I'm really going to try and watch it throughout. And safe to say, after one race, I'm not changing my opinion, not changing my mind just yet.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
This is basically going to be 15 to 20 minutes of Jamie 183 Guan Yu Zhou propaganda, but we're going to allow it this weekend. So, first things first then, Jamie. Your thoughts on the new format?
I thought it was great. I was a bit sceptical before, because the format of one feature, then a sprint of reverse grid seemed to work quite well. I still think it's a little bit confusing having the reverse grid from quali, then reverse grid again from race 1, and then back to normal grid for feature. But once you get your head around it, it's very good. And obviously, more racing is always better, and having a feature on a Sunday makes sense. So I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed all the races. The first one was a bit of a slow burn, but the second and third ones were brilliant.
Yes, yeah, and I think this is, again, I sort of watched that first race Saturday morning, and it's race 1 of the season, isn't it? Everyone, you know what Formula 2's like. We very quickly got back our typical Formula 2 by race 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, Liam Lawson did a fantastic job. First ever race in a Formula 2 car. He did brilliantly well, obviously, to pick up that P1. Jay Andaruvula, again, he's looking, we'll talk about this a little bit more. He was consistent all weekend. He was, when you look down the order, really, he was the only man to get good results. Guan Yu Zhou as well, technically, as well there. But yeah, Jay Andaruvula was really the only man in sort of my eyes that was always right there.
He was always like that in the picture of top 6, wasn't he? So
yeah, and then of course you had David Beckman as well. He was sort of coming into this season I didn't really know much about.
He was a bit average in F3, but he seemed to do quite well.
Yeah,
especially in the first race. I do think that the first race quite often this season will be a little bit more normal than F2 usually is, because
you're more normal than
I think it will, because there's so much pressure on race 1.
Oh, sorry, you mean like action-wise?
Yeah, action-wise.
Right, sorry, yeah, now I get you, yeah.
Less like F2 really is.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's so much riding on your result of race 1, because if you crash out, you're then last for race 2. So I think that they'll be a little more cautious in race 1 than they are for the race 2 and the feature.
Yeah, and I think that's obviously dependent on the calendar to a certain degree. I'm just looking at it and still cringing. I won't lie.
It's not a brilliant calendar, to be fair.
No, it's just not, is it? We'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. So obviously, we had Liam Lawson, Jay Andaruvula, and then of course it was Richard Beckman rounding out your podium in the first race there. David Beckman, sorry. Richard Beckman. I'm thinking of Richard for sure.
Richard for sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's not good. And then obviously Schwartzman in P4. Oscar Piastri in P5, we'll talk about him in just a moment a whole lot more, because all aboard the Oscar Piastri hype train. I'm all for it. I'm loving it so far. And then, of course, Oscar Piastri P5, Christian Lundgaard P6 again. A pretty quiet weekend by him. There should have been a bit more in my eyes. Yeah. And then, of course, you had Guan Yu Zhou in 7th, and then Dan Ticktum in 8th, and then Larim Zendelli picking up the bonus points.
Yeah, he got the fastest lap.
Yeah, which I thought was a bit strange. The fact that he... Oh, wait, yeah, no, where did
he was top 10.
He was top 10, but I thought sprint races should be top 8. It's
always top 10.
I know it is always top 10, but that's what I mean. I always think you should be only entitled to it if you're scoring points.
Yeah.
But again, it's a small thing.
That's a very minor thing, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day. Then also we move into Sprint Race 2. We got our Formula 2 back, didn't we?
Yeah. Mental race. Really good. I'd watch it in full if I could again, if it was somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, obviously we had Oscar Piastri. Now we'll talk. I can't hold it on any longer, Jamie.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm getting into the Oscar Piastri hype train. Exactly. I've fallen in love, Jamie. I'll be honest. I'm all for this. I'm an Oscar Piastri hype. I came into the season. I wanted to see Robert Schwartzman do well. He had a nightmare of a weekend after race 1. I mean, he crashed in race 2 down at turn 1. Obviously, with Dan Ticktum, he had that sort of weird moment, obviously, where Schwartzman was trying to get into the corner at the same time Ticktum was trying to get out of the corner.
Yeah,
personally, I thought it was more of a racing incident more than anything else, and that was, I think, how it was deemed, wasn't it, in the end?
I think so, yeah.
As a racing incident. I think, again, Dan Ticktum got a lot of stick for it because he's Dan Ticktum, which I'm not a... I mean... It's so difficult, isn't it?
He's a bit of a tool, but he was about 18 at the time, so I let him off.
Exactly. You sort of
everyone deserves a second chance.
Exactly, and he has really I mean, he's been so much better on social media. I had a little bit of gripes in race 3. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, race 2, he was unlucky, obviously, to have that incident right at the start there. But yeah, Schwartzman, not a particularly good weekend. Certainly, I'm sure he expected more. I'm sure Prema expected more of him. But Oscar Piastri, coming in straight off the bat, no experience with the car, he did brilliantly well to balance those tyres as well as he did.
Yeah, 100%. Like the sprint race 2, we had very mixed up strategies. I think Piastri did pit at the end under the safety car for softs, but even before that, he had really good pace on the hards for the first half of the race. I think he was on for top 5 anyway, and then the safety car played into his hands quite a lot. He just seemed at home straight away, right at the front of F2, which you don't often see rookies doing that well in their debut race. If they do, they're usually like the likes of Leclerc or Russell.
I mean, you're talking Leclerc energy there, aren't you? You look at him in a Prema, or George Russell, and you mean those guys won the World Championship that year, straight into Formula 1 and looking like absolute weapons instantly. And I think this is the big thing, isn't it? If you can prove the fact you can adapt from an F3 to an F2 car that quickly, a lot is to be expected that you'll do the same into F1, yeah.
We saw Tsunoda do that.
Exactly. That was, again, another example I was thinking of. But yeah, so obviously, Oscar Piastri hype train. Choo-choo, all aboard. Well, I'm loving it.
Until 2 laps for the end of the feature. But
yes. Yeah, obviously...
that was a bit of a rookie error. But he's allowed a rookie error since he is a rookie.
Exactly. And again, that one... I mean, we'll jump into race 3 then. You were bricking it before the start, weren't you? Again, as a Guan Yu Zhou fan.
I'm a big Guan Yu Zhou fan. I think he's a really good driver. You should support him as well. He's from Sheffield. Well, he's from Shanghai.
He's not from Sheffield, is he?
He's not from Sheffield, but he lives in Sheffield now, which is quite close to where I live. So
you're going to be round his house later, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm going to go see him. I thought he was in the bin when on the formation lap he was on hards and everyone else was on softs, but in the end, sort of playing into his hands with the late safety car, able to pit he pit before it, but the safety car obviously bunched everyone up. He had the softs, everyone else had the hards. So he was able to just about hang on at the end, getting past, I think it was Richard Vershaw, gained the most from the safety car because he got a free pit stop and was on softs. So he actually had the track position to win. And I think any other driver than a rookie would have won that race in Vershaw's position. But luckily, it was a rookie, and Guan Yu Zhou was able to come through on the softs and take the feature race win, his first ever proper feature race win after he got sort of... No, it was a sprint race last year anyway. It was a sprint race anyway, yeah. The red flag in Shanghai. In Sochi, sorry.
You're addicted to Shanghai now, aren't you?
Yeah, so again, very happy.
I think, there was obviously some controversial contact again early on. We saw Schwartzman. Not sure what that was into turn 4. I mean, it was Formula 2 is what it was, let's be fair. But
braking way too late and taking out two cars. Can't remember who they were.
And then obviously, I mean, the big man, Alessio Deleda, what a weekend he had. Quickly,
He actually did quite well. I was very surprised. Was it Deleda? No, I'm thinking Nini did quite well.
Yeah, no, Deleda had he had 2 DNFs, and I mean, let's be fair, it's going to be him versus Petkov in the wooden spoon battle at the rear of the field.
And Ben Viscal if he gets back.
Yeah, of course. Ben Viscal won't be able to keep up with him.
Well, he's only got a 1 race
in a Formula 4
contract.
car that he ends up with.
He might not be back next race in 2 months' time.
Yeah,
because he only had a contract with Bahrain, so we might never see him again, which would be a blessing.
With a bit of luck, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a particularly strong dislike to Ben Viscal. We just have a friend who is a rather large fan of Ben Viscal, who may or may not be watching this video. I'm sure you'll find him in the comments somewhere if he has. But yeah, Schwartzman, not a good start. Deleda, not a good weekend. No one really expected any different from that. I just wanted to mention him. Petkov as well, not a weekend. Boschung as well, sat between him in the results.
I didn't even notice him all weekend, to be perfectly honest.
It was one of those things where he's back again, eh? Apparently he got all of his own funding for the season. I can just picture him now trying to drive buses around. Trying to
They've all pulled out after 1 race.
Yeah. And just add, nightmare of a weekend. And that's another thing I think we need to talk about, is the reliability of the F2 cars.
Oh, that's a joke.
It shouldn't be an issue.
It's an equal car thing. It doesn't. The thing is, often in F1, you see reliability be bad because they're pushing the cars to the limit. F2, it's a single manufacturer. It doesn't matter how fast they are, as long as they're all the same speed.
Yeah.
Just make them safe and make it able to finish races. I think we saw.
We had Petkov had his extinguisher blow up.
What was his name? Armstrong, I think, just stopped in race 1.
Yeah, we had 2 cars out at the start of race 1.
The guy from Podium as well, the really young one. What's his name? Pourchaire. He was off for a podium in the first race.
Yeah. Let me have a look quickly.
The car just broke.
Where have I gone? I've lost the results. Right, sprint race 1. You had it only shows the top 18.
Oh, they just forgot about everyone else.
Yeah. Hey,
that's strange.
So, apparently, I don't know if is that the same for the others? Or do they just not show? Yeah, no, they only show the drivers that finished.
Oh,
so clearly Dallara are so worried about the reliability of their cars, they just won't show cars that didn't finish. But yeah, we had 4 cars out in race 1, but a couple of those weren't
crashes. Yeah.
Yeah, weren't due to reliability, but there were 2 cars very quickly.
I think Lasardi and Pourchaire were reliability, if I remember correctly.
Race 2, we had 5 retirements, but again, was
a lot of them
couple of reliability. But you shouldn't be getting any reliability issues.
Yeah, reliability should not be an issue in equal cars, especially top end. I mean, we say that they're all the same, but when you see someone like Pourchaire retire from race 1 from the podium positions, he's a rookie. He's a very exciting rookie. I think he's 18, which is ridiculous.
He's 17 still.
Is he 17?
He's 17 still, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
The fact that he's then retired in race 1, going to be classified 21st or whatever it was.
Had a worldie of race 2.
He did.
I must add.
But imagine if he started what would have been 7th in race 2.
Yeah. That
would have been such a better race, obviously. So it just ruins the whole weekend. And when you've got 8 rounds a season, 1 retirement in 1 race affects an eighth of the season pretty much.
Yeah, 12.5% of your year. Which is not good. Then obviously, again, just briefly, we need to talk about it towards the end. That crash between Piastri and Dan Ticktum towards the end of the day.
Piastri's fault.
Yes.
Well, I shouldn't say that. No. I should say it wasn't Piastri's fault, incident. But it was an issue Piastri caused himself.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a rookie error to keep it in that late into the corner. I think he was a bit desperate for the podium. Obviously, he's a very quick driver. He'll learn a lot from that. But it was a bit of a shame to see him fall out so late in the race. But it wasn't Ticktum's fault at all. It was like to blame him.
Yeah, it was one of those ones that I do in a league race, and then afterwards think, why on earth did I do that?
Yeah, why did I keep that in there? Yeah, I'd bail out.
You'd be sensible to bail out. Yeah. But again, like you said, people blame Ticktum for it because he's Dan Ticktum at the end of the day. And Ticktum, I personally believe, had the right to turn into that corner. He shouldn't have had to expect Oscar Piastri to keep the nose in. Again, it's Formula 2, so...
These things happen.
Yeah, these things happen, I think we'll safely say. And obviously that means at the end of the first weekend of the year, Guan Yu Zhou looking comfortable out front.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
I'm sure you are.
I think
Sheffield's finest from Shanghai.
Yeah. Yep. The couple behind him as well. I don't expect Lawson, Deruvula or Piastri to really maintain that. Maybe Daruvula could.
Daruvula should, I'd hope.
In terms of like the top drivers that I expect to be in the title fight, the likes of, I think Tickton will be right up there. I think Schwartzman will be by the end of the season, and Christian Lundgaard. None of them did particularly well. Tickton got the second place. I don't expect Piastri to maintain it over a season.
You don't think Piastri will?
I don't think he's that good.
I think this is just the beginning. All aboard the Oscar Piastri hype train, I say.
Yeah, well, you look at the results. At the end of the day, he had 2 good sprints. Like, a lot of rookies can do that.
Yeah, but he then also nearly had a good feature. Where was he running in the feature?
I nearly won the lottery the other day.
Yeah, well, exactly. If he'd finished well in the feature, like what, P5? He would have still been P2 overall.
Yeah, I'm impressed by Piastri, but over the course of a season, especially at such a street track-based calendar, I think that will favour the drivers with a bit more experience.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
So I can understand that. Fan. Or as who was it in the commentary box calling Guan Yu Zhu all throughout the weekend.
Billy Munger.
Yeah, Billy Munger in the commentary. Wasn't great, but we'll let him off.
Small things, Jamie, bigger picture. But yeah, I think Guan Yu Zhou is certainly looking like, again, for you, I'm sure, a championship favourite. Again, I think Piastri is going to be right there. I wonder if Daruvula will be. I think Daruvula, for me, feels like he's going to be one of those guys that finishes like P4 at the end of the year, where he has 8 podiums, but just doesn't get a win and just doesn't quite have the same to hang on.
Similar to Sete Camara back in the day. He was always like there or thereabouts, but never really that impressive.
Yeah. Tickton again, I think, could be a championship threat this year. Schwartzman as well. But I mean, if obviously Teo Porcher as well, I think should hopefully be somewhat a bit closer. I mean, Drogovic as well. What
he looked good.
Game. He looked good, and he's walked away with 2 points at the end of the first.
I don't remember everything that happened. He caused the crash, I think, with the Red Bull who wasn't Vips, the one who won race 1. Who was that?
Lawson,
yeah. In race 2, he caused the crash at turn 4, which wasn't the cleverest thing to do.
No, that wasn't his fault in my eyes. I'll be honest.
On the side of turn 4, I thought
Lawson should have given him the room. He watched. I can't remember who it was he watched that went through, and then just turned in on him.
Yeah.
But
it was
a racing incident.
These things happen in F2. I think he did get a 5-second penalty for that, but I can't remember. To be fair, there's too much action in F2. You lose track of
so much, isn't there? We'll have to start doing one of these on Saturday.
Yeah.
And then obviously another one on Sunday after the F1 as well. But yeah, I mean, again, there's so much potential in so much of the field.
Yeah, it's a very good field this season, I think.
We've got a great field.
There's not much routes into F1 for many of them.
No, exactly.
Beyond the Red Bull boys, obviously, they've always got a route into F1. But the likes of Ferrari and Renault or Alpine really need a second team.
Well, I mean, Ferrari, you've got Raikkonen probably on the way out. I can't see. I hope Giovinazzi doesn't keep a seat for much longer. I won't.
No, that's true. He seems like a bench warmer until the next good Ferrari driver comes through. Really,
yeah. Or Teo Porcher.
Is he a Ferrari driver?
He's Sauber.
No, he's Alfa Romeo. Right. Well, I think so. The way Ferrari Alpha works, Ferrari have the rights to 1 seat.
Yes.
And at the minute it's Giovinazzi. So if Sauber want to put Porcher in, it will have to be for Raikkonen.
I think as well, people seem to forget Giovinazzi is like 30.
He's like 27. Yeah, he's not a young driver.
No.
And he's so average still. I don't know what he's doing in F1 really.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? Where you just are like, he must be loving life, but
yeah.
Yeah. I think again, this is what to round it off. We got a field with a lot of talent, and we got a lot of tracks with no opportunity for them to really showcase it.
Yeah, Monaco's going to be a procession.
Yeah.
Which basically whoever qualifies 10th has won race 1, whoever finishes 10th has won race 2.
So it's whoever's qualified 10th has won race 1. Whoever's qualified on pole has won race 2 and race 3.
And race 3. So yeah, pole position's going to be quite important.
Yeah.
And also, if you're not on pole, try and aim for 10th.
Pretty much, yeah. Valtteri Bottas aiming for 3rd is the new energy.
It was all a plan.
Yeah, Baku again isn't.
Baku's actually quite good in F2. I like Baku in F2.
It creates a lot of action
because they actually go for things. They actually send it.
Yeah, I mean it's basically a track designated to sending it, isn't it, Baku?
Yeah, Silverstone's going to be good. Monza's always good in F2, and hopefully I'll be there as well, which would be nice. Sochi, I don't like at all, but it's actually quite good with the tyre wear in F2 is a thing.
Again, it says a lot when Formula 2 can make Sochi an interesting track.
Yeah. Jeddah, we have no idea, but I don't have high hopes. No. And Abu Dhabi will be Abu Dhabi.
Jeddah seems like one of those tracks where it's either going to be pure Sochi energy or pure Baku energy.
Yeah.
It's going to be one extreme or the other.
Hopefully somewhere in the middle. an actual race, but also a bit of craziness as well.
Yeah, and then
Would be nice.
Abu Dhabi is just Abu Dhabi. So I think I think Formula 3's arguably got a better calendar than Formula 2 this year.
Yeah, it has.
But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. We'll definitely be back with it. Obviously, like we said, we won't have another F2 thing like this really until
May.
So again, if you're just here for that, you're probably not going to find too much of it, unfortunately. But we will definitely be back with it covering down the line as well. But I think, Jamie, that rounds it all out.
Yeah, pretty successful.
Are you anything else to add?
I don't think so. It's a shame we got 3 weeks off until Imola, but
yeah, but again, we'll be back before that. I've definitely got a lot of podcast ideas, that I want to discuss. I'm sure there's things as well that you want to discuss as well. So we might make some like designated videos, sort of targeting one thing. We then might also do sort of like a general weekly roundup and everything like that. Obviously, depending on how much time we've got, all things considered. But yeah. Thank you all so much for watching once again. If you have enjoyed, do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed to both the channels as well. Check us out on socials. Obviously, we will be tweeting out and doing all this, that, and the other during Grand Prix weekends and just generally as well. We generally tweet just a lot of abuse of each other, to be honest.
And a lot of rubbish as well.
Really. A lot of rubbish, is generally the go-to. We've sold our twit as well there, I think, as well. And yeah, we will hopefully be back next week discussing Formula 1 once more. Probably not so much to discuss from Formula 2 unless something crazy happens, but we'll be back very, very soon nonetheless.